Buenos dias, Raiders fans. Man, it's a great day. Oakland Raiders 8-2. Not only are they the number one team in the AFC West following their 27-20 come from behind win over Houston, they are now officially the number one overall seed in the American Football Conference. Glory days are here again. Now, the thing about the Raiders game last night, it was a game where this Raiders team, I think when it's all said and done, we're going to look back on them as probably one of the most influential teams in the history of the National Football League. And I say that because you look at this game, and there's at least like 4 or 5 other games that happened this year where I think in years past the Raiders would have lost. They would have lost the Saints game, they would have lost the Buccaneers game, they probably would have lost to Tennessee, and they definitely would have lost to Houston. But they're doing something different. And it's really hard to kind of explain what they're doing differently. But they just have this attitude. They have this ability to go in there and kind of shift up their offensive strategy. Pretty much, at will. And you look at the game last night, the Raiders basically won that entire thing in the last 15 minutes. Right? They're kind of struggling for 3 quarters. And that's when they say, okay, we got a problem. We cannot run the ball. Maybe it's the field. Maybe there's too much carbon dioxide in Mexico City. I don't know. But we just can't get past the Houston defensive line. So here's what we're going to do. And they had trouble throwing to receivers too because elevation, slippery balls, everything gets bobbled. Just, not a good playing surface for an NFL game, to be honest. But more on that later. I've got a lot of things to say about that. So what the Raiders did, I think, was something completely genius. Something I don't think a lot of other franchises really would have had really the wherewithal to attempt. And that's when they said, okay, here's what we're going to do. If we can't get to our receivers and we can't run the ball, let's try something different. Let's get our running backs out there and use them explicitly as receivers. And you look at the game, and Oakland, they only had 30 yards rushing, but they got 200 plus yards from their running backs as receivers. It was an absolutely brilliant strategy that I don't think I would have ever thought of using to kind of get over that hump, and it worked. I mean, you saw Wally get out there for that huge touchdown run. Then, of course, you saw Cooper break loose in the end, but, of course, he's a standard slot receiver. But it was just sort of indicative of how the Raiders are changing the game because they're using, like, all these really gutsy, offensive schemes. They're going for it on 4th down. They're running. They're coming out there and they're going for the huge touchdown blow on 1st down. I mean, it's really classical Al Davis football for the 21st century. And it's a dynamic where I don't think NFL teams really are able to kind of counter a team that plays that risky. I mean, we're at a point in time where the NFL, where it's so just all about the pass game. It's all about, setting up the pass and basically just using the run game as a way of picking up the small yards to set up the touchdown strike. So it's a very conservative game. The Raiders coming out there throwing caution to the wind. We're going to blitz you. We're going to shove the ball right down your throat. We're going to try to go for a touchdown strike when it's like 1st and 10 on our own 20. And teams don't know how to react. They don't really know, how to play crazy 1970s AFC West football like that anymore. And I think, if anything, that has been the key driver of the Raiders' success this season. I mean, well, what more can I say? Derek Carr, 21 for 31, 295 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. They happen. It's what happens. The defense did pretty well against Brock Osweiler, held him to 243 yards, 1 INT, courtesy of Malcolm Smith. He only had 1 touchdown. Now, the run game was a problem. Obviously, the Raiders couldn't get it going, and they really couldn't stop Houston either. You had Lamar Miller go out for 104 yards. But beyond that, they did a pretty good job. I think they did a good job shutting down the receivers. I mean, what's his name? CJ Federich, whatever. He got too many yards, but overall, I think the Raiders did a better job with the pass game, and they definitely managed to make up for a really lackluster run game. But, of course, it's a 27-20 win, not a blowout by any stretch, and it was a come-from-behind victory. So there are some things to complain about. Michael Crabtree dropped way too many balls. Not a lot of fumbles, thankfully, but that's something's got to be erected. Yeah, I said erected. But you got to erect that. You got to build a structure around it. So you got to find a way to make that a little bit better. Kind of funny because Amari Cooper was a guy who said has the ability to drop a lot of balls, and then Michael Crabtree's the model of consistency. So Mexico's like opposite world, I guess. So yeah, good Raiders game. Come from behind, solid defense, going out there playing gutsy, ballsy football is the way God intended, and it puts them at 8-2. And lastly, it's a game where everybody in the NFL outside the Raiders base are very salty about this. You go on Reddit NFL and it's like, oh my God, this game was rigged. Houston, they were screwed over on 4th down. Oh, the receiver didn't step out of bounds. That should count as a touchdown. That's just a bunch of nonsense. First off, the dude just stepped out of bounds. And it may have been a bad spot, but to say that the league is showing any sort of favoritism towards the Raiders, the same team that got penalized 23 times a couple of weeks ago is just absurd. So, bad ball placement happens all the time. Maybe Texans didn't get it. I wasn't on the field. I'm not there with a measuring stick. I trust them a whole lot more than I do myself. And even then, it doesn't matter. You know why? Because Houston, they had an entire 15-minute period in the fourth quarter to put some points on the board and go up there and put their defense and shut down the Raiders, and they couldn't do it. The only people the Texans have to blame for this loss are themselves. All right, and lastly, I guess this is about Mexico City. I think it's one of those things where I really do believe that in 50 years' time, it's going to be a truly international game. You're going to have teams in London. You're going to have a team playing in a Estadio Azteca. And, the Mexican fans, they're just so great. The Raider fans, I always thought kind of brought a really, aggressive, nationalistic sort of soccer mentality to pro football. And it totally worked down there. I loved it. You had the guys out there throwing paper airplanes on the field. You had dudes with laser pointers from 1998 trying to blind Brock Osweiler. You had dudes chanting slurs during kickoff. This stuff that is just so completely, verboten in the sanitized NFL to where it just makes you feel like, man, we got to do this every year. I think the Raiders should play at least one game in Mexico City every year from now on. It's just too much fun. It shows they really are America's team. They're America's team and Mexico's team. They're North America's team. They're all the America's teams. And they're 8-2. They're winning games. We got Carolina coming up this weekend. And right now, we've already tied the best record we've had since the year 2003. So we're guaranteed to break 500. The two best years we've had since the Super Bowl run was 2010, 2011. We finished 8-8. Folks, we've got about, 6 more games left on the schedule. Things are looking very, very up for Raider Nation after all these years. So we got Carolina coming up this weekend. After that, we got Buffalo, and then a shortened week taking on Kansas City. So a lot of really tough games ahead. You can't take anything for granted. But just considering how the Raiders played in this game, how they came from behind, how they're still finding ways to win games that the other 31 teams in the league can't, gives me a lot of hope for the future. Here's the future, guys. I'm looking forward to it.